Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt. We talk about movies on this show, and this is actually a bit of an impromptu one because, well, so here's the backstory for this, okay? Bear with me. So, for a long time, we'd heard about God Particle. God Particle, of course, was the rumoured next film in the Cloverfield franchise, which at this point basically means anthology with loose connections, because 10 Cloverfield Lane had little to do with the first one except a few things, which we'll get into a bit more, I think, when we get to spoilers for this one, and we'll get to connections and all sorts. So, Netflix, about a month ago, for the international audience, bought Annihilation, which is Alex Garland's new film. He did Ex Machina. And this was not domestically, but for everywhere else, pretty much except, I think, the US, China, and I want to say like one other place. But they got the rights for it everywhere else. So Netflix are putting that film out everywhere else soon after it comes out in the US, right? That's what's happening with Annihilation.
Yeah.
Like a week and a half ago, murmurs came out. Oh, they might be buying God Particle for everywhere. They might be, the new Cloverfield movie, they might be doing that. And then, just this past week's movie news, me and Connor, just before the weekend, there was scuttlebutt that the rumours were that they've not actually announced that they've bought it yet, but they might reveal that they've bought it with a Super Bowl spot. That was the rumour going in. So
see, I had zero idea that was going to happen. Like, not an inkling.
Well, we were expecting, okay, so because of that news, we were expecting a trailer during the Super Bowl from Netflix, and then like a release date, like, oh, it's coming, and like, because this was originally scheduled to go to theatres on April something or other, sometime in April. But, but the rumours were that Netflix were going to put it out before that date. None of them said that night. So, naturally, we get that Super Bowl spot, and it ends with, on Netflix, tonight, and it's like, oh shit, we're shadow dropping it. This is bold. I like that for a couple of reasons. I liked it because it's very Cloverfield. If you remember, 10 Cloverfield Lane only get announced about 2 months before it came out, which is for a movie is really short. That is like,
yeah, and it was also a Super Bowl spot, if I remember right. Like, all of a sudden this trailer dropped on us, and I was like, oh, okay, this is coming out sooner than we thought. Like, we knew next to nothing outside of Mary Elizabeth Winstead and John Goodman, I think, and it was the next Cloverfield installment.
I don't even think we knew it was the next Cloverfield at the time.
I don't remember. I remember there being inklings. Maybe I'm just conflating that it was a Bad Robot. I know it was a Bad Robot production.
At least if we did, it was like, we didn't know the title. Yeah. So maybe it was rumoured, but I remember the trailer dropping for 10 Cloverfield Lane and being like, holy shit, there's a Cloverfield sequel and it's out in like a month. Like, what's happening? Out of nowhere. Especially at the time, because that had been 8 years since the first one, so it felt super. And remember the first movie, of course, had all the viral marketing, it had all that weird, like, ambiguous what's going on.
Yeah, I remember the first trailer. It was a, wait, what is this? Because it didn't open with the, the typical, this has been approved. It just started, like it was self. Yeah, in
fact, there was a time when we thought the title of the first movie was going to be the date. Remember, there was the release date. It was like whatever. It was like something February 08. Like, we thought that was going to be the thing, and my cat just threw the door open, like a annoying little shit that he is.
That's great.
So it's very Cloverfield to come out and say, hey, that's coming tonight. That is a very Cloverfield thing to do. It reminds me a lot of video games, because video games like to do this thing at E3 where they'll not maybe release a full game, but they'll like drop a demo. They'll say, oh, you can go home and play the demo tonight. That'll be a big thing, and then the crowd will cheer, and that's a big thing to do. So it's exciting. This was a big thing. It was like, games have done this before, movies have not. This is a first time thing for a movie. It's not. I mean, it's not super unlike Netflix, because I feel like Netflix movies, they basically announced their movie with a trailer about 3 weeks before the movie comes out. Like, every time there's a trailer for a Netflix movie, it's like, oh, it's here in like 2-3 weeks. That's very normal for them. But this was big. They went big for the Super Bowl. They announced it, said, hey, it's tonight. And, that caused a lot of buzz. There was a lot of excitement on Twitter and stuff like that. And, I went away and watched it a few hours later. You watched it the next day. And here we are today to talk about the Cloverfield Paradox, which, much like 10 Cloverfield Lane, we did not know the title until the trailer. And it revealed the title at the end. Yeah,
although I feel like the God Particle gave us more of the story than the Cloverfield Paradox would have. So, had they went with that title originally, it would have kept us guessing a little bit more. That said, there's, the title has with the plot. Either way, the title doesn't give away the plot.
Well, yeah, I mean, so. I think the whole point is they wanted to fit the word Cloverfield in there somewhere to let everyone know that it's part of the series. I think the other rumoured title for a while was Cloverfield Station, which also makes sense because it's a space station called Cloverfield, so that makes sense. So anyway, as always, we'll start spoiler-free. We'll give you a warning somewhere in the middle before we go into spoilers. I feel like the spoiler-free section will be short, and then there'll be a lot of spoilers because I feel there's a lot of debating to go on here. So, where to begin? Okay, so first thing first, so basic premise and just sort of general impressions, and then we'll talk about cast and so on. So the space station over Earth. There's a little bit of stuff on Earth, but the basic gist is that Earth is going through an energy crisis. Energy's running out. There's blackouts happening all the time. Certain countries are on the brink of war because of energy and energy depletion. So that's the thing that's happening down there. To combat this, an international station called Cloverfield has a bunch of scientists on it that are trying to it's basically a particle accelerator, but it's like the biggest one ever built.
Yeah, and in space, which makes sense. If you know how a super collider accelerator works,
of course, yeah. So,
they take a particle and they super accelerate it in a circle, and they crash them into each other, and you put that in a space station, which is already moving in a circle, because of orbit and whatnot. I thought that was super cool. Like, that felt real sci-fi. Well, not sci-fi. What is that? Sci-fact? I guess you'd call it. Sci-non-fiction? I don't know what to call it. But
I'd say the idea just feels, I guess, grounded. Right? Well, I wouldn't say fact so much, but it feels grounded.
Yeah. There we go. That's a better term for it. So, right then, I'm going off of the title, The God Particle, going, oh, okay. Clearly, something's going to happen with this accelerator.
Well, yeah, it's the plot of the movie, right? Something bad's going to happen, exactly. And we'll see what they deal with. And yeah, so obviously that's where the grounded elements kind of end, because then it goes off the deep end once shit goes down. So you've got a big cast of characters. It's a very interesting cast, actually. There's a lot of familiar faces. I'm going to butcher her name here, but the lead, Hamilton, who's the British member of the crew, they've all got flags on their, all got patch flags on their shoulders. So this is how I identify them more than anything, is what country they're from. But she's played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who I just saw in a trailer for another Netflix movie, but the main place that I feel like most people will know her from right now is San Junipero, the episode of Black Mirror. So she's in there. David Oyelowo, if I'm saying that again, butchering that. There you go. Yeah. He's in it as well.
Say it fast.
He's the American scientist or crew member.
If I didn't know better just from the movies I've seen him in, I would never guess he was British, because his American accent's like near perfect. Because he played Dr. King in Selma. I'm trying to think what else I've seen him in. I think he was in what's the one with Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain? Most Violent Year. He was in that playing an American. So when I do see him pop up with his natural accent, it's weird.
Daniel Brühl is the German crew member.
Of course, James Schmidt.
Yeah. Chris O'Dowd, we've got an Irish crew member, and it's Chris O'Dowd, who I know purely for comedy. And he is a little funny in this, but obviously it's not a comedy but at its nature. And then the Chinese crew members, Ziyi Zhang, who I like a lot. She's in Hero and House of Flying Daggers. And I'll give them credit, she never speaks in English in this. She's always speaking in Mandarin. So, you know what? Well, I assume it could be Cantonese, but I'm assuming it's Mandarin.
Yeah, it's a Chinese dialect. And what I like, too, is we get understanding of the crew, because clearly the crew are multilingual. So I like that we get her stuff. Yeah, we have subtitles, but the crew is also there to...
Yeah. So Elizabeth Debicki pops up as well, who, of course, has been in a bunch of things recently. Guardians 2, she was in that spy thing with Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer.
Oh, that's where I know her from. I couldn't pin her right down. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I see it.
And she's popping up in more stuff soon. So you got an interesting cast, to say the least. You got a sci-fi movie set in a space station. Obviously, the God particle, or the accelerator, goes off. Something goes wrong. There is parallel universe shenanigans afoot. And then it becomes about solving said shenanigans. And that's basically all I want to give away. I want to just leave it there. and we can talk about the rest in spoilers. But I'll ask the general question, Matt. Did you enjoy the Cloverfield Paradox?
I don't know. I'll
get it straight. Your feelings on the movie itself is a paradox.
That yes, exactly.
There you go.
Because clearly there was a budget. It looked great. You know, the cast is directed. Yeah, everyone's great. The camera moves. Everything. It's a coherent movie. And then you get to the story, and I just don't know what to make heads or tail of it.
I mean, obviously when we get spoilers, I've got theories about things, but as far did I enjoy the movie? I mostly did. I think the reaction to the movie has been very negative online. It's been a very not ill received film, and I feel like I agree with a fair amount of the complaints. I do think the script is not that great. It has a lot of interesting ideas. It doesn't necessarily quite make them all fit together in a cohesive way, unfortunately. But the cast are very good. I think the ideas that it's playing with are interesting and it makes for some cool moments. I think one of the biggest flaws, all in the fact that some of the ideas kind of clash, is it sometimes falls into the regular sort of tropes of a space movie where the station's falling apart and they have to do the same thing I've seen them do in every space station movie where they have to try and fix things, and it falls into a couple of those trappings, and it's so for as much as it's doing some really crazy stuff, some of it feels really simple and normal and what I expect.
Yeah, it almost feels like a space movie greatest hits at points. You know, like you get the can we trust this guy? Or, what's going on the outside? What was that sound?
Yeah, we have to put a suit on and go outside and fix something. That's dangerous. Yeah. All those sort of beats, it plays a lot of those. And that's where it largely falls down a little bit because it's just, okay, so we're just doing the regular thing now. That said, what I do like about this franchise, though, 3 movies in. Now, and I will say 10 Cloverfield Lane is definitely the best of the 3. That was a great movie.
Heads and, like... I was gonna say something larger than Head and Shoulders Above, because it's like up on a ladder compared to these other 2. But yeah.
I like that it is. I mean, it's obviously there's connections. There's a sort of mythology that you can maybe connect to it, and again, we'll talk about that in spoilers. But it's basically an anthology of different ideas that are just connected under this banner of Cloverfield. Because 10 Cloverfield Lane. I mean, sure, there was connections again, as we mentioned, but for the most part, it is a science fiction thriller set in a bunker about paranoia. This is a space station movie with alternate reality things messing things up. They're both very different films, and obviously the first movie is a monster movie. So I like that it's exploring different ideas. We know the 4th one's already been shot; it's already in the can. It's set in World War II. So
I am so down for that one.
So we'll see how that goes. That's get announced the night of. I saw a tweet joking that the 4th one's already out. We just have to find it.
Without a robot, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know.
You have to do one of their ARGs, and then which is alternate reality game if you're not initiated. But yeah, you just have to click on the links, go through, and find it. But
so. Great. I appreciate all these things, I like how it was announced. I do think it's kind of like the first movie in a lot of ways, where the movie at the end is okay to decent, and then but all the buzz building up to it is, and admittedly in this case it was a really short buzz because it was only it was announced, and 4 hours later it was on Netflix.
Well, this was a rare one where everybody I know was talking about it. People that you're not even sure liked the first 2 are just like, oh, I'm watching that. Just based off of it's coming out right now. So I thought that was pretty smart on their part, I think.
Yeah, I think honestly it's the biggest thing they could have done to make everyone excited at the time. I would have been excited because it's a sci-fi movie and I'm into this sort of shit. But I think that whole... Not only is it available tonight, not only is that a big deal in of itself, the fact that... No, this is a part of a franchise that's had theatre releases. People see this as a proper movie. And and I don't want to say that people don't look at Bright or other Netflix movies as proper movies per se, but I think there is at least right now, because we're not quite in the full swing of things go straight to VOD yet. There's still this kind of separation where the proper movies go to the theatre, and then the smaller ones go to VOD straight away. So having Cloverfield, which has had 2 movies in the cinema, and then having said, no, that's coming tonight on Netflix. You can go see that right now without paying for it. Like you've already got Netflix, you just go see it.
Yeah.
That feels like a big deal. And obviously, I think we'll get more of this going forward. Not necessarily the same day announcements, but just the big movies being bought by like Netflix or Amazon or whoever.
Well, I mean, it already happened when you talked about it earlier with Annihilation. Like, some people have to go see that in the theater, in 2 weeks when that comes out.
But again,
other people are going to get it right away.
But again, that was like a month ago. So I'm saying that we're just starting. We're just starting that ball. It's just starting to roll. Because I think what people don't realize actually is that a lot of Netflix's original movies aren't actually produced by Netflix. They just they'll buy them after they're made. Like they'll go to like a festival.
It's distribution. That's what Netflix has done. They've taken basically a movie rental company and turned it into a distribution. So they'll buy up all of these, like Beast of No Nation. They produced that, but they also distributed it.
Yeah.
And then they even try to make theatrical runs. Which I guess sometimes works out. I mean, given the opportunity, I probably would have went and saw this in the theater. It's cool that I just got to turn on Netflix when I got home from work yesterday when I watched it. Man, it's been a long couple days. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I would have normally seen in the theater.
Yeah, no, but it did feel like a big deal. So, and I think in that sense, it was a success of an experiment, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree.
Because everyone, good or bad, I mean, sure, I've seen a lot of negative buzz about it, after people watched it, the opinions generally been negative, and I understand why, but they're all talking about it. Like, people, it's trending on the Twitters and everything else, like, people are, talking, so, on that front, I think it's kind of a success, but yeah, so what actually does work about the movie? I said the ideas were pretty good. I think it does have some pretty interesting little funny beats. It has some cool little, like just sci-fi twisty moments and stuff like that. Where
the moments are there. It's for me, what didn't work were the reasoning like behind those moments. I'm still thinking about them. So that's good. I mean, I don't believe that everything that happens needs a clear, concise. I just want to follow the reasoning story-wise. Some of the stuff happens. But I love the interactions that it gets out of the characters.
Yeah, the characters are unfortunately a little bit thin. Like, obviously, they try and give, Mbatha-Raw's character Hamilton, who's kind of the lead, even though it's in the song, she's kind of the lead. They try and give her like a sort of this dramatic past that kind of like speak to her motivations, and it's all fine. It feels very kind of surface level and typical. It's like, this is exactly the sort of reason you expect someone to have when they're on a space station in a movie like this. So it has that kind of like working against it, where again, like for every good idea there's like a sort of trope that it's sort of like clashing with, and it kind of does that throughout the entire film. I think the ultimate result is that it's a competently made movie that has some nice moments, some nice ideas. I think it was an easy enough watch, but I think when you actually start to look back at it and nitpick at it, and it's not a knockout the park like 10 Cloverfield Lane was. 10 Cloverfield Lane was like, oh shit, that was great. Like, that was, and I think that's just part and parcel of having like an anthology style series where, you had different directors. It was Trachtenberg last time, I think, whereas this time, who did we have? We had
Julius Onah.
Onah, who I'm not familiar with off the top of my head.
No, because the reason I was able to pull that up so quick is because I just clicked on him online to find out what else he's done, and it's really
shorts,
not a lot. Yeah, it's shorts and music videos really. So, and I gotta say, for just being shorts and music videos, it's a pretty competently made movie. I didn't feel like it was missing anything.
Yeah, honestly,
filmmaking wise,
I think the script is honestly the main problem with the film. I think that's what lets it down. I think because it's poking at all these really big, like huge ideas of multiverses and meaning of things and all this stuff, and then the actual story plays out more like a typical space station's in trouble, we have to fix it movie.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it ends up feeling a bit more surface level than it should. Whereas you'd want it to feel like, no, we're going on a mind-bendy fringe science experiment where, everything is not quite as it seems. But
you just nailed it with Fringe. I think I got to go back. I only saw the first season.
Oh God, you have to go back and watch Fringe.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch that. But I think you just nailed it. That you can do it, but you have to set it up properly, and I don't feel like it's set up properly here.
Yeah, it definitely rushes into its plot. Like, there's not a whole lot before things go wrong and stuff starts happening. With that said, though, I think we'll go into spoilers. We'll give it a spoiler warning so we can start talking about all the juicy stuff. So, once they fire the thing, and they actually have like a montage early on showing that time's passed because they've been up there for about 2 years, and they're at the point now where they only have enough energy left to fire the accelerator 3 more times. They can only do it 3 more times. So the third last time, they're ready to go, and they're all getting frustrated with each other. You can see there's like fights breaking out. The Russian dude is kind of like getting angry at Daniel Brühl's character, and he's like, "Yeah, this is your fault because you're the one who like runs the thing." Yeah.
So my wife's watching this with me, and she only really recognizes Daniel Brühl from Civil War. And she goes, "Oh, you can't trust him. That's Baron Zemo." And I died laughing. And then there's a plot thread later where you can't trust him because he's the German. And, oh, man, so perfect.
Yes, and so the thing gets fired, and their station obviously has a bit of trouble, and then they realise, wait a minute, we're not where we were. Where the hell's the Earth? Because they're orbiting the Earth. They're right above the Earth the whole time. And then they look out, and there's no Earth. And they actually run around the station looking at the various windows to see if they can see the Earth. And they can't. And then the real weird thing is that there's a person who appears. Elizabeth Debicki's character is not one of their crew, but she appears inside a wall. They hear like screams and moans coming from inside a...
It is very unsettling because you hear a thunk in the wall, right? And then when they find her, she's trapped in all the wiring, and it's like... It's so creepy as they're pulling her out, and she's screaming because she's clearly freaked out. Like, she doesn't know how she got there.
And she knows... Hamilton's character's name, you know, Ava. That's the first name. She was like Ava, and I'm like, and it was kind of that point where I kind of got what was happening, like just in terms of like what had just happened. So basically, in the movie, when they fired the accelerator, they jumped into a different universe, and they basically took over the space where the other station was, and this one crew member, Debicki's character, basically was standing where this wall was, but the rest of the station, as we find out later, went plummeting down to Earth and crashed and failed.
Yeah.
And so we're on another Earth, and a lot of weird shit starts to happen. Almost, because I think they phrase it like, oh, the universe is trying to like rewrite the wrongs and put things back together. So lots of weird, crazy stuff starts happening around the ship. Like, of course, Chris O'Dowd's got his arm, gets sucked into the wall, and then his arm gets cut off, and then his arm shows up later on its own, moving around and writing clues and...
Yeah, that's the one I was like, what the hell was that about? And then we never quite get an answer. So was that... I kind of took that was maybe his character of the opposite world's arm, maybe. And like, that got shifted because it starts giving them hints about what's going on.
That's not how I took it. I took it because obviously the arm goes into the wall, we don't see it, and then it shows up later, and then they have to like put it in the cage, and it's just trying to write, and it gives them, you know, cut into the Russian guy. He's got something inside him because they can't find the gyrosphere, which is they need to find,
which is the navigational tool.
And what I took this as is that this is his arm. It's his arm, but it's his arm from the future.
Oh, Jesus.
So it knows these things because it's from the future. Don't ask me how that works. I don't have an explanation for you. But
and this is where the movie where I get caught up on this stuff, and it made me not to start. I'm like, okay, but because I'm well versed in alternate realities, I read comics. Like, this is fine, and I when I heard about the title, the Cloverfield Paradox, I kind of felt that's the direction it was going. And so I was like, okay, well, are they going to meet parallel versions of themselves? Is that what this is? Because I remember this was the shot I remember most from the trailer was his arm crawling by itself, you know, towards almost like it was an android arm or something. So I'm, you know, trying to piece it all together. And then you have the Russian guy who he starts like feeling that stuff's crawling inside him, and then he ends up exploding in the worms that were like they were experimenting on up in space had gotten put into his body.
I don't think it was I think it was experimentation. I think they used them for the ecosystem up there.
Yeah, okay. Well, either way, these worms are up there, and I was just like, okay, well, where's that at? Like, you know, so all this weird stuff just starts happening, and it's unsettling, and it got some, you know, don't want to say scares out of me, but I did yell, "What the hell?"
The arm stuff was great. In fact, it led to my favourite line of the entire film.
Yeah.
After it writes down.
Yeah.
Is it after it writes down? I can't remember if it's after it writes down or if it's. I think it is after it actually writes it down, but it might be before when it's just sort of trying to write. But they read, like, you know, cut into whatever, and Chris O'Dowd just yells out, "What are you saying, arm?"
Yeah.
that broke me. That cracked me up something awful.
Yeah,
that line.
He's so good at comedy. Like, because he also has a line later where he says he'll lend his stump. He goes, "I'll lend a hand." I mean, stump. You know, because he's missing. Yeah.
Just him yelling, "What are you saying, arm?" is just just a great line. But so I love the arm stuff. That was because it was so weird and bizarre, and it felt like, okay, we're going to start playing with all these weird like ideas because of what they've done. And then Debicki starts like sort of, because I kind of liked her turn against the crew because it made sense to an extent because she cared about her world and she realised that if they go back, like, her world has no chance, because we find out that her world's in a different place because her world has the same energy crisis, but the ground are already at war. The Earth is already like fighting over this.
So you find that out that that's why Germany and Russia, there's like a world war going on in Europe.
Yeah.
And because she makes a mention about Schmidt being a spy, because Germany and Russia don't trust each other, and you're like, whoa, wait, when did that happen? And then you come to find out, you hear like a transmission later.
Actually, the funny thing is technically they're not on their own ship; they're on the other cruise ship, because when they look into the data, they actually find like the evidence that says that Brühl's been getting messages saying, hey, sabotage this and sabotage that, and. I mean, that's the thing. As soon as the captain goes to him and like punches him and stuff, I'm like, oh, he's innocent. This is just because they're getting stuff from the other Earth. That's why he's being suspected here, and so that was cool ideas. I liked that, and I liked that obviously Mbatha's character, like, her kids were dead on the main Earth. Now on this Earth, they're still alive, and that's why she's not actually on the mission. That's why Debicki's here instead, is because she stayed with her family. So
she still worked on the project, but as a civilian, not as part of this mission. So, and then it also adds to her struggle that now, like, well, no, I want to stay here. Like, yeah, we can get you guys back, but I want to go be with my kids, which also adds to the problem. Well, now there's going to be two of you. Like, how are you going to solve that one?
Well, yeah, because she doesn't think about that. It's actually the captain or whoever who brings that up and says, hey, I think it's maybe Brühl. He was like, but yeah, if you go down there's going to be two of you, so think about it. It's not, that doesn't work. Like, this does not happen. Like, how are you going to explain that to her? Like, this can't be a thing. So a big part of her character is like making the choice to know she has to like stay and like deal with her own life and her own world, and because she also kind of shrugs off her husband, because he's like, yeah, but what about Michael, your husband? Like, you leave him alone. It's like, he'd understand. It's like, he'll never know. He won't understand.
Yeah, you just never came back from space, lady. And then, so speaking of him, he's my other big problem with the movie. Is as much as I enjoyed what had happened with him, I felt like they were trying way too hard to tie it into the original movie, which I feel like Cloverfield Lane, it did so well at kind of keeping the first movie at arm's length.
So, do you think then the final scene, which we'll get to in a bit, do you think that plays better if we didn't have his subplot throughout the movie?
I don't know, because it hints at the creature. I just, so I got really into the Cloverfield stuff once I had seen it and all the background and where it might have come from. And then, so now there's some inconsistencies. So I feel like this is, comic readership. Where continuity doesn't line up.
Hold on a second. Is it inconsistencies with the other movies, or is it inconsistencies with stuff you just heard in passing outside of the movies? Because that's not really inconsistent. It's changed.
Yeah. So in the first Cloverfield, there's no mention of a energy crisis.
Oh, no,
it feels very much.
I've got a solution for this, Matt. It's easy.
Okay.
It's easy.
What?
Right, so in this movie, you have Donald Logue's got a cameo. He's on TV at one point early on, and he's like, "Oh, this Cloverfield thing's dangerous. Like, if they turn this on and it works, like they could be letting all sorts of creatures and demons coming in from another dimension, right?" And it's like, okay, all right, so this is how it's maybe going to tie into the other movies. And like you, I was thinking, but wait a minute, like we didn't have this energy crisis, and the first movie was set in 2008, and I think this is not set back then. This is set now, give or take. And I'm like, okay, so that doesn't quite line up. Here's the thing, though, right? I remember J.J. Abrams. I remember after the first movie came out, he did an interview where he said that the creature in that first movie was an infant looking for its mother. I don't know if you recall that message, that interview, or whatever.
Oh, see, I forgot about that.
Right. Okay. And when we see the size of the creature at the end,
it doesn't gel, right? Like you're like, okay.
But here's the thing. Here's what I think's happened.
Yeah.
When they turn this accelerator on and it works and it overloads and it sends them onto the other dimension.
Right.
It didn't just do that. It completely broke the multiverse.
Yeah, so it created a tear in the space-time continuum.
Every Cloverfield movie we've seen, Matt, has been a different Earth.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking. So you think this is the inciting incident?
Yeah, I think this movie is the cause for why the first movie happens, why the second movie happens, but they're all in different Earths or whatever.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense now. I didn't take that in because everything that I had, the research into the original Cloverfield alternate reality stuff, where you did some digging through the internet and found all these links, and it basically suggested that the original Cloverfield monster came from the deep of the ocean, because that company, we keep seeing it pop up, Slusho, right? They're a Japanese company, but they also are, invested in like deep sea drilling and to get the special ingredient in the Slusho or whatever, and that's what woke up the monster. And then at the end of the movie, we see it's something falling to Earth, right? Like you go back and watch it, the scene on the Ferris wheel. So I could start connecting the dots, but now that it's, you bring up JJ saying it was a baby looking for its mom, and if we make these, interdimensional creatures, then that's fine.
Yeah, it just means that it came to Earth in the first movie, landed in the water, got up, done its thing throughout the movie.
Yeah. Or I mean, with the way that time works and whatnot, as we've seen in like other sci-fi movies like Interstellar, gravity affects time. The baby Cloverfield monster could have fallen decades ago, and it went into a state of slumber. They woke it up.
But
now,
what was falling at the end of the first movie then in the tape? Because that was just like the previous day or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. So the theory on that one at the time was it was a piece of space junk. And that's what actually woke it up when it landed or whatever. Like, I feel like they were just throwing stuff at a wall. They just wanted to make a cool movie, and they added all this fun stuff. Because even then, the designate that they said when they found these tapes, it was from the Cloverfield incident, and that was it. So they want to circle back around and call when this landed, when this pod or the entire space station was a Cloverfield incident. I don't know. But now that made me, not that it makes me like it any more than I already did. I like the answer more than, I don't know, it's kind of inconsistent.
What if, right, we've dealt with 2 space stations here and 2 Earths. The main one we're following and the one that got destroyed because it traveled to. What if there's like stations on like, dozens and dozens of Earths, right?
Yeah.
Right? And what if the thing falling in space was actually the pod, the escape pod, actually landed in the water from one of the like it didn't come from the Earth of the first movie, but because of the multiverse, it came from another Earth, but it had a space station for the energy crisis, and it landed on Earth into the water at the end of the first movie. This is getting convoluted and weird.
Well, no, but again, this is why I like this anthology style, because I have a lot of friends that think like, oh no, this is a direct like sequel to Cloverfield, and I disagree with them. I don't think it is. It's not. It's an anthology, but it's a little bit closer tied to the first than Lane was.
Yeah. Well, no, because I mean, it's closer tied in that it's the inciting incident, but they both essentially have the same thing. Where when we get to the end of the movie, we realize, oh wait, the aliens or whatever they are on Earth. Like the monsters are here.
That's true. Because man, that moment in Lane.
Yeah,
so fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Lane plays it for longer because we get like an extended 15-minute chase of hiding and stuff, and whereas this it's just like, holy shit, look at the size of it as she gets back to Earth. You know, it's really a big thing. No, and there's more than one here as well, because in the phone call, Michael says, "Hey, no, don't let her come down here with these things. Like there's things all over the place." Which again, the fact that he's in a bunker as well, I feel like just thematically it was tying it to both the first and the second movies, because it's a bunker, there's multiples, but of course the fact that it's a giant one. And all that, and when he sees the first monster or the hints of the first monster through the smoke, and you don't really see it, but you hear it, you get a glimpse of the shape. He's not reacting to that as if he knows what that is. This is not a world that's had these monsters before. He's like, what the hell? What is happening? What are these things?
That's why I thought they were retro. They were retconning the first movie, right? Yeah. And that's where my problems were coming to start from. But then again, like you suggested, if it's a different Earth and this is this Earth's interaction with the monsters, and then it's fine. But I thought so. Now that storyline I actually like a little bit more than I did previously.
Yeah, it's very like, on the one hand, it's very just convoluted sci-fi nonsense just to kind of tie everything together. In a world that doesn't have to be tied in together, you could just make an anthology series. I kind of like the weird, because I feel like it's not injecting too much of the movie with it, that I actually kind of like that they take a little bit of time in each one just to, in a really convoluted way, explain how these are all kind of connected in a really and they're going with the whole multiple Earths, multiple universes, all this is all happening. But I do like the idea that this thing that happened, this station firing its beam, was like, it didn't just ruin this Earth, or didn't just ruin their planet, it ruined every Earth on every
there's
universe.
A ripple effect.
So now,
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was going to say that every Earth is dealing with these monsters, because this is and the idea that time doesn't match on each Earth, so that's why in the fourth movie potentially we're going to have World War II, and then by the end of it there's going to be monsters. I don't know. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember when the CERN in Switzerland, when they fired that up for the first time.
I remember
and the people were freaking out.
I remember the build up to it and people being worried about it, but I mean I don't remember.
Yeah. So that's when I had heard that it was called the God Particle. That's why I was like, oh okay. This has to do with multiverses, because that was one of the things saying oh, you might accidentally create a black hole and we don't know what's on the other side of that. It could be a parallel universe. It could be this. It could be that. And of course, nothing. I mean, none that we know has happened.
Oh, it's all top secret. They're keeping that hush hush.
Yeah. So I like the idea that they're playing with that again. I said that at the top, with expectations of super colliders and whatnot. But yeah, I like that ripple effect across. It was from this one incident, and you go back and you can think this is why the aliens are invading at the end of Lane, is because it affected, whatever this was affected.
More precisely, they've already invaded because she was knocked out for X time, and they're all kind of bunkered down. And I think it says something that for the majority of this review so far, we have been talking about the mythology and not so much about the plot of the movie itself, because that's the interesting part of the movie. The actual characters going through the motions of, we need to try and close this vent and rewire these things, and Captain has to sacrifice himself to take away that part of the ship, otherwise the whole station will go down or break apart or whatever.
We've seen it done in better ways, like in Gravity. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
A lot of this reminded me of Gravity without the tension, Yeah,
because there's elements of Gravity. There's it's running around the ships, kind of like Alien a little bit in places.
And the distrust, I was getting vibes of The Thing. They didn't know what was going on with her.
Yeah, I feel like the actual sort of what the characters are doing for 90% of the movie is very much just a hodgepodge of all these different sci-fi movies we've already seen do these things better.
Like I said, a greatest hits.
Yeah, it just happens to be connected to this really fun core thing that ripples out the mythology of the whole Cloverfield universe, and now we're talking about all this stuff. So I think if this was let's say it's a TV show, let's analyze it or not analyze it, but let's grade it as a TV show, right? In our heads, where I think it's not a great episode, but it feels important in the tapestry of the whole thing.
Yeah, so it's basically one of those deep season Lost episodes. You'd get to like episode 11 where stuff was getting all weird. You don't know why, but sooner or later you'll realize that is going to inform a story going into season 4. You know?
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean there. And I think the upside of this being an anthology style as well is that number 4 is going to have a different director and different cast, and I think that's why the quality is so up and down, is because it is completely different people making them every time. And again, we really like 10 Cloverfield Lane, so there's nothing to say that even if you were disappointed with this one, that you might not love 4. Yeah. You might love 4. 4 might be great.
Yeah, well, I'm down. I mean, I came out of this going like, oh, okay, that was the movie. That was my exact quote to my dad, because he wanted to know how it was. I was like, well, it was a movie. But that said, when you said that the other one's already done, and it'll probably be released sooner rather than later, I'm excited.
It could be before the end of the year, which is insane, given we just got this one now. But, it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. I think it's funny comparing it to obviously 10 Cloverfield Lane's the best, by far, because it works on every level, I think. I think when you're comparing this to the first one, I think the first one's technically the better movie, because it's the more tight movie in terms of just the action, the adrenaline, the suspense, the flow of events.
Can you believe Matt Reeves directed that?
I know, right? And, hey, can you believe it's 10 years old?
No, I don't want to believe it's 10 years old.
In fact, it's 10 years old this month. It came out in February. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly 10 years old. And then, but I think Cloverfield Complex, it's not as good as a tighter movie. I like the cast, I like the look of the film, and I like the mythology, and I think that's where it gets an interesting comparison, because I think from a mythology standpoint, and try to piece everything together, this is actually the best piece of the puzzle in that sense. But as a standalone movie that works with its characters and what it's doing, it's probably the weakest of the 3.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I'm just reading about the 4th that's coming out, because I missed all of that until you brought it up. I didn't realize Wyatt Russell's in there. I'm excited about that. So,
I think there was a few names I recognized. I think when I looked at it before.
But no, I agree with what you were saying. Like it's kind of a mess, but at least it's a fun mess. If you're gonna be a mess, at least make it fun. And I feel like it does do that.
Yeah, it's not a hard watch. I feel like even though I got a bit halfway through and I realised that okay, this is not as good as 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's a bit more haphazard. It's a bit more surface level. I wasn't hating it though. It wasn't as bad, because this has the advantage almost. I watched a spaceship movie last month called Supernova from 2000 with James Spader in it, and it was absolute garbage. And this almost has the benefit of me kind of being able to compare it to both ends of the spectrum, where I've seen the complete trash, I've seen the really good stuff, and then this is just kind of like, it's kind of, as a movie, it's okay. As a piece of the mythology puzzle, is very interesting and exciting to talk about.
Yeah, it's basically what Bad Robot does best. It's a puzzle box.
Yeah, it's a puzzle box. Yeah.
That said, did you see Life? Was that from last year?
I did see Life last year,
yeah. So I kept getting those two confused, because I just know they were on a spaceship. Where does that compare with this one?
I like this.
I know you weren't a big fan of that one.
No, I wasn't. I liked this more because it had the mythology stuff and it had some fun elements. Whereas Life to me felt like it was taking itself really seriously, and it was mostly just like an alien meets a virus movie knockoff. That felt like it was very tropey. This is fairly tropey in places, but it's got a lot of other things attached onto it, which admittedly does add to the kind of messy quality of it. But it was a mess that I kind of still enjoyed watching, so I'm not too down on it, even though I will agree with the majority of the criticisms, because I think they're fair.
Well, it's not perfect, but it's a fun watch. I to my friends that hadn't seen it, I did like, well, if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix. Like, there's nothing holding you back. So if you have an hour and a half, and that's the other thing too, that it's a nice. I don't want to say it's tight because it's kind of messy, but it's 100 minutes, give or take. So you're in and out of there before, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time.
What I will say though, actually, is when it started, and I was like, oh, I kind of like some of the crew members. I was like, no, don't get attached, because Cloverfield movies do not end with happy endings. They end with really bleak endings. Now, admittedly, 10 Cloverfield Lane wasn't that bleak in the sense that she was still alive and she drove off into the night, and we don't really see what happens to her. That's the happiest we've had. Whereas this is them landing on Earth with this huge, gargantuan, like 800-foot monster, like coming up above the clouds and like roaring. The first movie, like the characters just all die at the end. We just have them die. So don't get attached to characters in Cloverfield movies, because you will not be happy at the end. That's all.
And maybe that's part of the intention of making them kind of by the book, where it's kind of like, well, they're here just to take up, plot space. So I don't know.
That's a bad script. If that's the excuse, then that writer's an idiot.
I'm not saying this was a great script.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, you never make the choice to have your characters be, kind of bland, and I don't think honestly the characters are bland. They're elevated by the fact that they've got a really good cast doing them, but they're still kind of just typical characters. They're not really much to them. So I guess we're getting kind of to ratings. Unless there's any other moments you wanted to mention in terms of.
No, pretty good. We talked about the worms. We talked about the arm. Her stuck in the wall. That's about it.
Yeah, because then it's the stuff where I did like how they've got a 3D printer, so they're constantly printing little tools and stuff, and then of course one of them prints a gun eventually.
Of course, and of course it's the Russian, because like if J.J. Abrams has taught me anything, is that there's going to be one crazy Russian on a space station like in Armageddon, which he wrote. A lot of people forget that Abrams wrote Armageddon, so why not keep it going?
Yeah. Cool. So if we're rating it, Matt, what are you rating it out of 10?
It's about a 6.5 for me.
Huh? That's exactly the number I was going to give it.
Oh my god, this can't be happening. We're having concurrent ratings.
I know. Basically, my justification is 7 is good, and I don't want to outright call it good because it is a bit too messy for that. But I still kind of had fun watching it despite its messy qualities, because I did like the mythology stuff, and I like the cast, and it looked pretty good typically. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit disappointing, of course, because it's not the outright, oh, this is great, like 10 Cloverfield Lane was, because that was just a great thriller.
Oh, yeah, that made my top 10 that year.
Was it number 10? Because that would be fitting, because it's called 10 Cloverfield.
No, it wasn't. I believe it was 4.
Oh, that was high. Jeez, I liked it a lot. It didn't quite get that high for me, but I did like it a lot. But hey, so that's Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a paradox that we ended up on the same score. I felt dirty.
Hey, what can I say, man? What can I say? But that is Cloverfield Paradox. So let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fudge for channel updates. If you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Of course, part of the Patreon perks, there's a link to it in the description as well, by the way. But part of the perks of the Patreon is you get to do some of the votes, some of the movie votes. The Influx vote is up. It's all video game movies this month, so we'll do one of them in March, around when Tomb Raider comes out. The original Tomb Raider is one of the options. The other options are the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Yes, I'll vote for that one, guys.
And oh god, Mortal Kombat. That was the other one. So that's the 4 options.
What did I do there?
And of course the Overload vote is up. But me and actually it's not up yet. That's right, because you were late making your choice, so it's not, the vote's not up yet.
It was.
So
I thought you were going to say the new episode is up. That went up.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. That went public this week. Yeah, so that's the Big Sick. It was the last one we did. We talked about that. And it's a very positive review, so go check out that.
Nice.
But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening, and we always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys. And I mean, who knows when we'll see you next, because Netflix might just shadow drop another movie on us, and we'll have to do that quickly.
Yeah.
But
this was like a vintage Randy Orton RKO, just out of nowhere.
Matt with the wrestling references, always. Alright, that is us, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.